The artist knows better than other people what level of detail needs to go into something. I think that's important. But the artist also has to remember to think like and about the other people who are in this equation. Hi friends, welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about perfectionism. Perfectionism. I am a perfectionist. I am an extremely detail-oriented person. I see the value in the details. I see that all the details add up and make a whole that is different than if those details would not be there, or if those details would be different. Now, do I think that there is one perfect version of a thing that has to be hit? No. Every detail makes something a little bit different. But I do think the details matter. And I do think that it's not true that people won't notice the details. Now, they may not notice every single detail cognitively, if that's the right word. They may not watch a movie and go, what wonderful sound design.
We must confront the reality of interstellar traffic.
Or how well done an animation of a background element is, or something like that. But they will notice the greater whole. They will notice the feeling. They will notice the experience.
I feel all tingly inside.
So anyway, I think many creators have to wrestle with this with others around them. I think if we were left to our own devices, we would just be detail-oriented people. We would just make things until we feel good about them and put them out. And some people struggle with this thing where they can't ever put anything out in the first place because it's never finished. It's never finished. That's the thing, right? But I think a lot of people are just trying to reach and this is me, I'm just trying to reach a level of excellence that they feel proud of before they put the thing out. The problem happens when you start when you start creating these things for other people and you have deadlines and you have to ship things out into the world. And so there's this tension, there's this balancing act that has to happen. The way that I think the word perfectionism is often perceived is you could say that there's a positive perception of it, which is just the detail-oriented nature of a person that creates something good. If you're flying on a plane, you want a certain level of perfectionism to go into that plane, right? Nobody's like, man, you really just got to calm down on the inspections on the planes. Nobody's saying that because they recognize the importance of that. But obviously that has to do with safety. Videos are a different thing, or photos or designs or what have you. The negative side of it, though, is when it's perceived as an overgrowth of detail-oriented effort. Too much detail-oriented effort, it's fine, just let it go. Now, for one, we have disagreements about what is the appropriate level of detail to put into a thing. These are very real disagreements. Somebody who is not an artist might look at something and say, this looks great and it's done. But to the artist, it's like 60%. And like rightfully so. The thing is really not done.
I told you this would be an easy one.
Now, sometimes the thing could be done. Sometimes the artist is, engaging in such a tremendous level of detail orientation that maybe they should put it out. But there's this dance, there's this tension. You have to think about what the goals are for this thing. There's a lot of questions there, right? It's actually not an easy thing to deal with, this perfectionism, at least in my mind. I want to make a distinction between perfectionism and what I would call excellentism. Perfectionism, it focuses on the details, and sometimes it's focusing on the details for the details' sake, for the sake of getting those details right. And sometimes, so the details are so focused upon that the goal is actually missed in the process of focusing on those details. And we may not want that. But if you're thinking about, what is excellent versus what is perfect, at least in my mind, the way I define these things, perfect is like pristine. It is spotless. And I think a certain level of perfectionism in a piece of art is warranted, and it's different per different pieces of art. But like if you go to watch a movie and there's a bad edit in the middle of the movie,
It's always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, huh?
and that's startling. It takes you out of the immersion. It distracts you. right? That's a big thing to focus on, is if we're thinking about why we would want something to have a stronger level of detail when it comes to art. Two things to focus on: immersion and eliminating distraction. That takes attention to detail, and that's important. I think that's very relevant. Anyway, perfectionism, and then there's excellentism. As I'm looking at my notes, it's showing a little red line underneath the word excellentism because I made it up. Excellent doesn't have to be perfect, right? You can have an imperfect excellent. There's a beauty in imperfection. There's a beauty in humanness. But everything asks for a different level of all of this stuff. And so you really have to think about what the goals are. And anyway, I think excellence also recognizes a limit, because if this is, once again, this is the way I'm defining it. I understand that we can define these things a million different ways. The way I'm defining excellence right now, it recognizes a limit because it recognizes a goal, and something that is in the workshop is not excellent if it's in the workshop because it hasn't reached its goal. It hasn't actually been shipped. Because if the goal is to get it to be a product, it's not excellent until it is that product. But it also can be a product that's not excellent.
Perfectionism and mediocrity are both the same thing. And what they are places to hide. Perfectionism means I will never be finished, because how could it be perfect? And perfectionism feels like a worthwhile endeavor because we say, what, do you want me to just ship junk? And so we hide behind perfectionism. Mediocrity, the flip side of that is, well, what the hell? I just put it out there. Can't hold me responsible. I didn't really work very hard at it. Again, I'm off the hook. So mediocre is another word for average. And most organizations make average stuff. Most creators make average stuff for average people. That's what makes it average. Most. If your average stuff doesn't happen, no one will miss it, because there's plenty of average stuff to take its place. But if you can figure out how to do something that's beyond mediocre, not perfect, but simply changing the situation, solving the interesting problem, that we would miss if it weren't here. Work that doesn't ship doesn't count. And one of the reasons it doesn't count is it can't fail. And if it can't fail, you don't learn anything.
I keep saying this, but we have to think about where we're trying to get to with the thing. And that helps us with the detail orientation, and it helps us orient our brains in the right direction with that detail orientation. And it also can help us recognize when maybe we don't need to be so detailed. You know, I've been watching Casey Neistat for a long time, and I just found his brother Van Neistat. And I mean that, like, I just found him. I did not know he was making videos, and I started watching his videos, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why have I been missing this? His videos are so eccentric and interesting. His style of making videos is so intriguing and fun. At first I was thinking, okay, maybe this is like a good example of like a rough creation. But the more I watch his videos, I realized there's actually a lot of detail that goes into all the little things he's doing here. They're simple in some sense, but also they are very detail oriented. I mean, even just little things like his little typewriter intro. I see that if he did not put in a certain level of detail into what he was doing, that would not look that way. But there's this balance there, because I could imagine he could probably go even further with all of that into an insane realm. Funny thing, as I'm editing this video about perfectionism, I realize Van has just released his own video about perfectionism. So I guess my video idea got leaked again. You can't keep doing this to me, Van. Anyway, back to my video about perfectionism. But Casey is another example. They're definitely cut from the same vine, but Casey's videos, I think, are less polished than Van's videos. Very interesting. They feel more like a vlog. They feel more kind of run and gun and just jagged, you know, and rough. And I don't mean that in a bad way. His videos are wonderful and interesting, and such a unique editing style. I love it. Beautiful flow, beautiful narrative storytelling going on. So I just mean that in the sense of the pacing of the editing and the sort of lack of detail orientation in certain areas. Like, he has a certain level of detail orientation. Van has a certain level of detail orientation. There's value to like a rough version of an art form, and there's value to a really polished version of an art form. I guess my defense of perfectionism and detail orientation is that it is a crucial part of good art. It has to be managed within the context of the goal of what is trying to be accomplished. The artist knows better than other people what level of detail needs to go into something. I think that's important. The artist also has to remember to think like and about the other people who are in this equation. The people who are talking in marketing, talking with the clients, setting up the deadlines. That's relevant too, and you have to meet those things in the middle. I think a good artist is somebody who has the ability to plan well in the beginning, plan well, and create a process that is not going to lead to tremendous time overgrowth in the end, or somebody who knows how to manipulate things later in the process. I should say because I think both are key. Somebody who knows how to manipulate things later in the process when things need to happen quickly in order to get that thing done more quickly. But it's a lot harder then. It's a lot harder when it gets to that point. I don't know. I don't have all the answers to that, but I know how important the details are. And I know that the difference between more detail and less detail. But I also know the difference in not hitting a deadline. That's a big deal. So I don't know. Stream of consciousness. I hope you guys enjoyed it, found it interesting and valuable. Hope you guys have maybe it helped you out today. I hope so. Thank you guys for listening and or watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Goodbye.